Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Augury, Bibliomancy, and Chaos. Today, I am very pleased to share with you a selected reading from my forthcoming new book entitled The Court of Curiosity, from the original French manuscript by Marck de Vulson, Sieur de la Colombiere, Knight of the Order of St. Michael and Gentleman in Ordinary to the French King, translated into English by J.G. Gent in 1669. And now, without further ado, the editor's foreword. Greetings, dear reader. Afore proceeding apace, allow your humble editor to thank ye kindly for purchasing this, my inaugural work of historical dream literature. Undoubtedly, one must ask themselves, why has an esteemed, accomplished, and exceedingly humble man of science, being polymath and autodidact most extraordinary, thus endeavored to reproduce such an obscure and dubious text, let alone one which purports to contain well-nigh universal meanings for the hieroglyphics of dreams, when the practical arts of psychology have now far exceeded these embarrassing origins in modern times? As expected of one thus academic and drawn to such esoteric material, thou art indeed most astute, and thine idle musings deserve well full explication. First, I will confess without shame that this work exists to sustain my employ by tangible means, and rightly so, for no man may be expected to play benefactor without reciprocal benefit received unto himself. Yet primarily, and notwithstanding my own pension, this document was found to be thus egregiously missing from the available physical library of historical dream literature as could be found by exhaustive review. Many more popular and well-known works are available for commerce, and so your editor has elected to recreate this manuscript specifically, such that a physical copy also be ready to hand, and thereby in like manner preserve this instrument for posterity in a modern edition as well. The reader will find this edition greatly condensed in comparison to the source material, which is primarily due to the change in font size and character, but also owed to text and line spacing, as well as the combination of erstwhile disparate sentences into paragraphs of related concepts, whereas these conceptions were heretofore previously displayed individually, each in a new paragraph of but a single sentence, thus so, line by line. Contrariwise, many terms and references have been left in their original form, with footnote for the edification of the reader. Grammar, syntax, punctuation, and spelling have likewise been modernized throughout this updated work for a variety of reasons, though in most part to make the text more easily consumed and comprehensible to an audience in the year of our Lord 2020. In fact, one will find the most archaic use of language resides principally in this unnecessarily loquacious introduction, and thusly because I find it extraordinarily amusing to do so in abject refusal of further justification. The section of dreams interpreted alphabetically, found midway through at the end of the first treatise, has been significantly reordered to reflect what your editor deemed to be the proper categories. In the original text, some items were listed in a bizarre manner, owing to partial sentences being arbitrarily cut at seemingly random words. For example, one section of the source text began with, "To dream that you," and followed with the words, "are clothed in silk." This entry was classified in the source text under the so-called alphabetical listing of the A's for R, rather than under S for silk, or even C for clothed. This edition reflects liberties taken to order such things into categories more readily searched, thus the entry here referenced being moved to S for silk, rather than A for R. Within this section, the reader will also find both oddly specific references and some few contradictory passages. For example, the text speaks of grinding pepper being an omen, but has no other meaning given for this category of item, say if it be spilled or should cause a sneeze. Another listing for trees gives disparate meanings under the experience of being transformed into a tree within a dream, alternately indicating joy and profit as well as sickness. No explanation is given for these conflicting interpretations of the same imagery. Another inexplicable entry makes note of what it means to see thunder in the dream. Though if this is not merely an artifact of blunder, it may be an erroneously worded reference to seeing lightning. Despite my desire and marginal attempt to present the Dream Dictionary material true to its original tone and content, and though I debated whether I should leave it unaltered for the sake of historical accuracy, this section proved incomprehensibly disorganized in its prior form, and was thus utterly useless as written by any logical metric, notwithstanding such content being entirely useless in general and presented solely for amusement or academic edification. One hopes your editor's category choices prove coherent, and that you find this new arrangement infinitely more sensible, aiding in ease of use when seeking out any category listing for a specific type of dream image. Fair criticism of the dreams as omens approach aside, we do see herein, about the broader text, a nascent inkling of what would someday become a more meaningful interpretation of dreams under the rubric of symbols personal to the individual. Though the author classes these things far too broadly, still we see passages that proclaim a dream of great and long continuing rain, hail, tempests, and thunder being significant of afflictions, troubles, dangers, losses, and peril to the wealthy or nobleman, while contrarily to the impoverished sort, they signify repose, for during the storm they are shut up and at rest. Here we see referenced a common set of cultural understanding being applied to the imagery, in some reasonable manner, as dreams of dangerously turbulent weather may well be induced by the waking experience of troubles and loss, though the same thing may have different meaning to a common laborer who anticipates the comfort and relaxation of a period idle from work due to inclement weather. So close and yet so far away, with cause and effect much reversed. Your editor also debated intensely regarding inclusion of the extensive physiognomy section, which fair doubled the size of this work, as it is not explicitly relevant to the broader topic of dreams, being my actual topic of specialty. I opted to revise and include this material for the primary purpose of presenting the original publication as completely as possible, but also for the satisfaction of what I hope is the reader's general fascination with the full range of concepts and commentary presented by the original author in historical context. In the discharge of my editorial duties, I was pleased to discover that despite the expected anachronisms and being a product of its time and particular cultural lens, the original text contained a valuable collection of some surprisingly worthy philosophical discourse, if rare in relation to the dross. Indeed, well aside from the ancient wisdom thus referenced, we find also the primordial beginnings of what would become the modern investigation of non-verbal communication, as found in the arts of reading body language and facial expression. As such, and given the wide variety of subject matter disclosed within this book, should the reader be uninitiated into the secrets of the Illuminati, this treatise should serve to whet the appetite for further study at the very least. That being said, one would hope our dear reader applies the same skepticism to the descriptions contained within this physiognomy as be equally turned towards the preceding discourse on dream hieroglyphs, and for similar reason, not the least upon finding lengthy descriptions of disparate human traits by particular regions and nations, but by various references to the lost art of phrenology. Without addressing the veracity of such claims in any substantive manner, as any reader inclined to this type of book surely needs no such explanation, it should nonetheless stand as a matter of historical interest to hear described the impressions of the author as a learned man of his time. Such a document was, as were many others, distributed as a tome of education and passed among the landed gentry, being taught to read, as peasants were often not, for containing the most scientific of observations. One will note that while our erstwhile translator, Mr. Gent, did scoff at the Treatise on Dreams, yet he gave much credit to the section upon physiognomy. Additional levels of irony and critique obtain when one reflects upon the fact that this work is a modern American update of an English translation of an original French document, having been filtered through not only diverse hands across vast nations and multiple continents, but also conducted thus across numerous centuries to be delivered for the enlightenment of an infinitely more sophisticated and broadly knowledgeable audience. I will take no pains to comment further, feeling that no additional explanation is warranted or necessary. For myself, as a man of science in the study of psychology, this manuscript in total holds much delight in being a trove of anthropological treasure. Here we see a lost transitional work, unwedged from the craw between the wisdom of the ancients and our contemporaneous understanding, as one would pick loose and dislodge an errant flake of popcorn shell, long trapped betwixt the teeth and gums. A satisfying experience, yet none so nutritious. Some of the millennia-old revelations contained within have indeed remained constant in the intervening centuries, at least insofar as we can adjudge from our present perspective, thus giving credence to the precept which asserts that certain observations stand eternally unassailable across the generations of man, while other claims will be rightly dismissed as ill-conceived, and would stand the author much embarrassed were he held to account for his advocacy today. Above all, the very title of this tome should proclaim loudly a mirthful double entendre, as this work was originally presented to satisfy the desirous curiosity for learning in its day, indeed courting such curiosity, as it were, and now exists as a historical curiosity, chock-a-block of erroneous claims, amidst which gems of insight yet gleam. For all that this treatise purports to be a work of collected knowledge, yet so our dear reader must not forget that historians of the future will likewise look back upon our own modern hubris with similar mirth, as we yet rightly reflect upon even such medical knowledge as was extolled to be fact within only the past century, and stands revealed as much mistaken today. If one takes away nothing else from this manuscript, may it be this: you don't know as much as you think you do, nor do I, nor do any number of well-regarded and much vaunted paragons of intellect and scientific research as currently exist in all the hallowed halls of academia. At the end of the day, we are well reminded why Socrates, still widely regarded among the greatest elders of inquiry, remains the wisest of us all. And that, dear friends, brings us to the end of this selected reading of the editor's foreword from my forthcoming new book, The Court of Curiosity, available December 31st, immediately preceding the turn of the new year. I thank you all in joining me for another episode of Augury, Bibliomancy, and Chaos. And because today is what today is, I wish you all the most joyous of holiday seasons, the most Christian of Christmases, the most happy of Hanukkahs, the most... what's a Q word that goes with Kwanzaa? I don't know. And the most fabulous feast of Festivus. But above all, thanks for listening.